is quite wonderfully full, and so welcome everyone to virtually welcoming you to UWE Bristol, even though we're not physically on campus at the moment. I'm Louise Gourvit. I'm the Staff and Student Engagement Officer within the Equality, Diversity and Inclusivity team here at the university, and it's my absolute pleasure to be welcoming you for this event. Black History Month has been marked in calendars in the UK since 1987, yet sadly the world hasn't radically changed since then. This is why events like today are so important, and the conversation around race and equity needs to be loud, visible, and spearheaded with systematic change. The racism and discrimination that we have seen over the summer and beyond demonstrates that we as a global community needs to not just raise awareness, but act urgently. Here at UWE Bristol, we know that we have more work to do. We are committed to ensuring that everyone who studies and works here is able to be themselves, bring their diverse identities into the UWE community, and experience welcome, belonging, and an environment that enables us all to give of our best and access opportunities equally. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to be with us today. We really hope that today will provide you with stimulating conversations, and most importantly, that you will continue these discussions beyond the time we have together. This is the last of our event series organised by the Equality, Diversity and Inclusivity team for Black History Month, but this isn't the end of our conversation on race equity. You can all search the rest of our events and searching UWE Bristol events to look more on activities and events happening organised by the Students' Union. They're doing an excellent A Year in Conversation with Augusta and celebrating Black excellence, which centres around ensuring that the conversation around race and equity goes beyond just Black History Month and happens all year round. There is also some excellent events being organised by the BME Forum and some of our other faculties. All the information is available on our events page. We're really pleased to be able to have tonight an outstanding panel of speakers who will be sharing with us their experience, expertise and knowledge throughout the course of the evening. I want to say a very special thank you to Emmanuel, who is chairing this evening's event. And throughout the course of this evening, the topic of the conversation is Black Lives Matter and the call for action. I really hope that you find it stimulating, engaging, and that you take the time we'll be having questions at the end, so where you can ask questions to the panel. Ask questions to the panel. I will be now passing over to the panel themselves to introduce themselves, and then passing on to Emmanuel to start the conversation. Lauren, would you go first?
Okay. Well, my name's Lauren too, and I'm a poet from here in Bristol and creator of Cargo.
Mena, would you like to go next?
Yeah, for us. Dr. Mena Fombo. I have a portfolio career. So I run Bristol's Black Girl Convention. I am co-founder of Black Wave Productions, a TV production company. I'm an inclusion diversity consultant, speaker, and also trying to purchase a new Black-owned venue to be located on the Bristol Harbour, which will be a Black Arts barge. But, we can get into other things that I do as we go through.
Thank you so much for that.
I think, am I next?
Yes, you are.
Hi, I'm Ngaio. I'm also a bit of a portfolio. So I'm a radio and TV presenter. I'm a journalist, a writer. I run a all female and non-binary DJ collective called Booty Base, which runs inclusive events across Bristol. I'm also a musician and a spoken word artist and an inclusion and diversity consultant, working predominantly with festivals and arts organisations on how to diversify their staff.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And next, Will.
Hey all, great to see everyone today. My name is Will Taylor. I am, as it says, a creative producer and inclusivity consultant. I also wear many other hats, writing, podcasting, thinking, research, and many other things. But yeah, it would appear that my favorite hats to wear at the moment are orange.
Thank you, everyone, for the introduction. And Emmanuel, would you like to introduce yourself as well so people know the background of who you are as well?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Emmanuel Adukwu. I'm the interim deputy head of department in the Department of Applied Sciences. And I'm really pleased to be here chairing this panel with an array of fantastic and talented speakers. So I'm really looking forward to the event as well this evening. With that being said, I would start the session and discussing with the panelists. It's great to actually have everyone listening to us this evening. Like you can ask questions. So there's a Menti link which will be put in there for you to be able to ask questions or put your comments in there. But first and foremost, what I want to do is actually ask a question of the panelists this evening. Obviously, we've gone through a very difficult summer. The summer has been a very difficult one and potentially traumatic summer for Black people across the world. Now, how have you been looking after yourself and looking after your mental health and well-being? And I will start with Will on that one.
That's a big question. We're not playing. How have I been looking after myself? I think practicing gratitude, actually. It's a how can I put it, like a byproduct of my understanding and my journey into my faith at the moment, and recognizing what is in and subsequently thereof what is out of my hands. So to keep myself sane has been to speak to people, try and get varied responses to what's occurring from within the Black community, as well as from other communities as well, and pretty much staying present, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah, there's a bit of conflict resting within me, but also like being absorbed from what I see outside about people stepping on each other's toes and people not being given the space to explore how they are best suited to kind of like contribute to the Black Lives Matter movement. So to stay safe and sane, I keep a distance and just continue to learn pretty much at the moment. That's what I'm trying to do anyway.
Okay, thank you. Mena, I'll come to you on that one.
I think for me, it's kind of been a journey. I think the past 4 years or 5 years since moving from London back to Bristol, I've just been grafting forever, it feels like. And I think coming into the beginning of this year, it was January, and I was like, second week of January, and I was like, why is my calendar full? This is crazy. And so obviously with COVID, it just kind of paused everything for a minute. And that just gave me space and time to literally be still. When I say be still, I don't mean it in any kind of, like analogy or any kind of like coded way. I literally mean lie on the sofa, watch Netflix. I mean, listen to music, find a love for music again. Never had time to do that kind of stuff, and just took that time. And I think for me now, it's just taking time out, allocating that sort of 1 day a week to just have time with my partner. We bodyboard, go to the beach, go to the water, be in the sea. That's kind of what I do to kind of just find that time. It's really, really basic. I literally stop.
Awesome. Lawrence, I'll come to you on that one.
Work, being busy. It's been kind of funny because the work that I was doing, I've been lucky in a sense to just be able to keep myself really occupied. And the most important thing is to not be distracted. The work I was doing before is It's the same work I'm doing today. What has actually happened this year is that my voice has become a bit more welcoming in different quarters because of actions that have happened that have brought a certain narrative to the forefront. So I find out that this year's made me actually be more busy than I've been probably the last 15 years of being a poet and writer. But what I'm not doing is being distracted and getting drawn into too many different other things that are going on because I had a plan and work I was doing before. I'm sticking to the plan and the work I'm still doing. Really, yeah, it hasn't changed anything, except it's just made in a weird way. It's made me be more in demand. I like being busy, so yeah, to be honest, I'm trying not to pay too much attention. I don't listen to the government or the system anyway. At the best of times, I'm really not going to listen to them right about now too much. So I'm trying to keep myself isolated from all of their noise or their white noise going around there and focus on the job that was in hand before they tasted what it was like to feel a bit frightened for once in their realities.
All right. Ngaio?
I'm just going to correct you. It's Ngaio. It's a
Ngaio, sorry.
We always think it should be
The
said.
silent G, I'm guessing.
Oh, it's a silent one. Yeah, can you guys see me? Is my video on? Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think for me, to be honest, it's a day-to-day thing. I think what I'm trying to do now more than ever is just really tap into what my body is feeling on the day. Like there is, after Black Lives Matter during the summer, things got quite intense, I think, for everyone. And I was like, okay, I need to get a really good sort of self-care plan in place, and that's not just lighting a candle, you know. It was a full morning routine. It was like, right, I'm meditating, I'm gratituding, I'm lighting my incense, I'm going and drinking my cup of tea. Like I really gave myself like a half-hour thing to get ready in the morning, because I just thought, if I don't do that, if the first thing I do is go onto my phone and see the madness that's going on out there, that's it, I'm lost. The day is gone. I'm lost in the phone. And it's something that I'm still working on, you know, to like after, I don't know if anyone's been following NSARS, but last night was traumatic. I woke up this morning traumatized, and it's one of those things where I think now more than ever, it's just recognizing that not every day will be the same. But what I'm trying to do is just make sure that when I'm starting to feel a little bit unsteady, I've got that checklist of these are the things you really like to do. And I mean, also the cat is getting a lot of love. He is so done with me. He's like, put me down, let me live my life. So yeah, I think just finding little things that are just gonna sort of keep me ticking along, even when for rough days and for good days.
Yeah. I think it's lots of very interesting points raised, and one of the things I really wanted to really get across, I think, from you guys is, I think not everyone actually understands when we talk about the potential sort of trauma that goes with some of these conversations and all, and what is being visualized. And I don't know whether you might be able to sort of help the audience actually understand why some of these conversations we're actually talking about in terms of a mental health and a well-being point of view. I don't really know whether you have any take on that.
Do you know what? I was just going to add, just listen to you talking, Ngaio, like, and then I was just thinking about like the year and how it's gone in my summer. And actually, I did kind of do a bit of reflection over why am I feeling so good? Why am I not feeling so good on different days, and how that was. And actually, what I concluded at one point was I wasn't having to interact with the world. So when I had a period where, you know, I was lucky to have some furlough time, we weren't allowed to go out or not meant to go out, and like I didn't. Apart from I went for like a run each day because we were told not to run. So suddenly I wanted to run a marathon, which is, you know me, that's just some kind of craziness going on. But actually I didn't have to interact with the world. And when I say that, it meant that I didn't have to find myself in spaces where people are doing that classic everyday racism thing that happens when you go to meetings or you go to events, or when you're having to kind of, you know, pander to certain people or bite your tongue because you're representing an organization or an institution. And I'm not saying that I always, you know, hold my thoughts, because it's all, I strategically place my energy at this point in my life just because that's how I manage it for myself. But I think to try and get across to anyone who I know who's listening and doesn't understand that, it's quite a pathetic and sad existence to think that you feel better because you don't have to interact with a racist, sexist world. And that's literally at the core of what I had. And what that also meant, obviously, might be, I'm not kind of addicted to my phone, so I can just ignore social media and just switch off from that. In terms of TV, I'll watch, some escapism like Vikings or whatever. That's in some other land, and I'm away. I'm gone. I'm done. So I think, just the existence of having to think, in order to have peace, I have to close myself off from the world is quite sad. And I think about it, but at the same time, for me, it was great because I don't have to think about it. Because just kind of echoing the things that Lawrence has said, my work hasn't changed. I'm still doing the same stuff I did before. And actually, opposite to Lawrence, I'm just being very strategic. I could be a lot busier, but I'm actually just saying no because I'm sticking to the plan and not being distracted.
No, I think that word being distracted is something which has been mentioned now on 3 separate occasions from yourselves in the last few minutes. And what would you say in terms of the impact of this the global interest in Black Lives Matter on the work that you're doing? How has that actually changed?
Well, my phone's been ringing. I don't know about you guys. Busier than I've ever been.
A lot of the institutions, a lot of the business, everybody out there all of a sudden wants a black voice, and they want to be connected to a black voice. So if you exist currently in the digital world, if they can suddenly put in the thing Black Bristol somebody, and you pop up on that screen, yeah, I bet you everybody pops up under that screen underneath those labels. I bet your email and your phones have been running off the hook for the last 4 months, and I think. And everybody thinks you've got the answer. That's the bit. Everybody all of a sudden from everywhere, oh my God, we didn't realize that the world, of course you realize the world was racist, it's just that your racism has been put to the front. Now it's what can we do to either appease, address. I'm not really sure if any of it is actually to make a change yet. I don't know yet. It's been too short a period in time. Right now, everybody is firefighting, oh my God, what I haven't done. So it's very demanding. I can see where a lot of people are getting a little mental stress because you're being asked to be the answer to loads of problems and issues that these institutions and companies, should have been addressing for decades. And all of a sudden they want you to be the answer today, to help them. I'm not still sure if it's to help us,
And this is the thing, isn't it? Like, being expected to have the answers and also not recognize that there is serious trauma happening at the same time, and actually it's incredibly difficult to be creative and whippy and manage everyone else's emotions around the conversation when you yourself are not okay. And I had to have quite a few conversations with organizations that I was working with, and I just said to them, listen, I understand that you want to make change right now, and I understand I'm the closest one to you, and I understand we've been having this conversation on and off for the past 4 years, and so now you're ready to talk about it. I'm not ready right now. So what you need to do is go and do some reading, go and find some budget, go and have the discussion you need to have with yourself, so that when I come to talk to you, I'm not having to manage your breakdown around the fact that you're recognizing racism in your life. It's not just about work. It's not just about your friends. It's not just about, your auntie who says the bad words sometimes. Go and deal with that over there. And once you've done that, then come and talk to me. Because bringing people into this conversation before you're ready to have it is more damaging and more work than it needs to be. And we've already been working too hard on this forever anyway. All of us have got so many bodies of work. Oh, let's just go into the backlog, man. Go into the backlog, get some dividends, and I'll come back.
Well, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
It's reminded me of a lot of the work I'm doing at the moment. A lot of the research I've been doing is about belonging and the processes that inhabit that and what belonging can mean. And in one of the bits of research, I was asked to kind of express or try and give people an access point into what inclusion work feels like. And the only metaphor I could come up with was a car crash. Unfortunately, I don't choose or wish to equate being black to being in a car crash, Being black is like driving a car. That's what being black is. Racism is several little car crashes. It could be a small car crash, like a little bump on a bollard, or it could be a total. You know what I'm saying? It could be fatal. That's how racism works. The reason I use that metaphor is because, so I've been told, I don't know how to drive a car yet legally, but so I've been told, when you have a car crash, things slow down. Your perception moves into a next phase because you're gone into survival mode, and you have to make sure that whatever movement you make or whatever reaction you make ensures that you stand the best chance to survive. So your brain can calculate loads of little things in milliseconds, which makes it feel like everything slowed down. And then once the accident has finished, if you're still conscious, everything seems to move really fast, but it's moving in real time. Now, you're having all of that happen to you whilst you're in a car crash. People are only watching the car crash happen around you. So things still happen in real time for them. The thing about racism is that there's no debris, there's no carnage for anyone to visually see. That's all embodied inside the like recipients of the racism. So people are going to carry on, like people who are not necessarily experiencing it are going to carry on like everything's normal. And what's happened this year is loads of people have gone onto their phone and asked you to look at your car crash. And you've gone onto Instagram and someone said, here's your car crash. Here's that big car crash you were in. Here's that tiny car crash you were in. How many car crashes have you been in? Oh my God, I can't imagine what it feels like to wake up every single morning and walk straight into a car crash. You know, imagine if we spoke to people who had been in car crashes that way. You know what I'm saying? It's unfair. I think what needs to be recognized is that what the question, like a big part of this conversation that needs to be had, and I know research has been done into it, is about PTSD. And all of that stuff needs to be taken into consideration and account when people from marginalized communities are being asked to work in partnership, equally importantly, to work in partnership with other people who are trying to understand more about how they can literally decolonize whatever situation they find themselves in. I think there's a lot of power, a lot of colonialism, and a lot of that's still present, and we can't point the finger because for a lot of people they haven't known anything else, and that's a whole new conversation. To build something new means to make mistakes and to get it wrong and to lean into learning from those things you've got wrong. I think there's a lot in us to like really try and take into consideration how we treat ourselves and subsequently the people we kind of like share this experience with at this moment in time.
That's I've got to let that land a minute. I'm landing it, but I love that car crash because as you're speaking, I was like, oh, this is that works for me. So I love that. Will, I was gonna add like the way I've kind of described it before, and not to trigger. Hopefully, I don't trigger people, but like I kind of said, it would never be socially acceptable for a female sexual assault victim or rape victim of a male sexual assault to stand in front of a group of men and explain what that was like and why they shouldn't do it and why certain actions may lead to X, Y, and Z. That would never be something that people would consider. But as a Black person, it's completely normalized for us to go and stand in front of people and talk about this thing. You know what I mean? And if you take more on the sexual assault side, you know, it might, like all these little things that might happen as you're going through life, because as women, we've all experienced something in some form on any kind of spectrum. And obviously men experience it too, of course, and on all genders. But it's just the idea that, yeah, it would be completely inconceivable to ask that of somebody. Yeah, it's completely normalized the other way around. And by being a diversity consultant, you're almost complicit in it. But at the same time, you want it to stop. So, do you know what I mean? You're balancing that. It's just, yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it. But I love the car crash well.
So it's powerful analogies here. I've got a question. Black Lives Matter has become a divisive topic So once you mention Black Lives Matter, you start to see things just pop up in different spaces. You hear it's too political, it's too this, and it's too that, and why is it only Black Lives? What does Black Lives Matter actually mean to you guys individually, and what do you want to people in this room to take from that whole Black Lives Matter phrase? I'll start with you, Lawrence.
Black Lives Matter. I don't know if we got enough time. To be honest, when it first came around, I'm not in it. I don't see why I have to walk down the road or anyone has to say Black Lives Matter. So that's my first grievance with it. With the fact that we're in 2020 and people actually would try to make this statement. I'd rather touch you and let you know my life matters than carry a statement. But the travesties that are still happening in the wider movement, we mustn't lose that sight. So that's where it gets all like just muddied up and taken away. Yeah, innocent people of African and African diaspora descent to this day are still being killed innocently on the streets in broad plain daylight of everybody. Yeah, this is actually what this is about. Forget the name. Yeah, forget all the noise that goes around it. Let's stick to the facts. Yeah, the young men and women, yeah, who have been shifted from Africa through the diaspora, still to this day have no rights against protection from the police or the system in the countries they were taken to. And to this day, we are still being murdered on the streets innocently. Forget the rest of the conversation. Yeah, this is what, forget everything else. This is what it's about. Yeah, young people being murdered and no accountability. The laws were won 60 years ago. People died 60 years ago for us to be able to walk the street and be free and feel safe. My children should not feel at risk. I should not feel at risk for my children because they don't even know the risk they are walking every day down the street. That isn't acceptable. It's not right. You've hit a nerve. Yeah, you've really hit a nerve. I want to see people made accountable. Yeah, I want to see chief constables sacked. I want to see the heads of schools that are failing our children for decades sacked. And I believe when people lose their job and they have to experience the lack of accessibility to life that we experience daily because of these prejudices from a racist structure that we live in, forget the picking bits about this apart. Our children are at risk every single day on the streets from being murdered by a system that still doesn't recognize our worth. Can we just keep it there?
Does anyone else want to come in? Because I can see everyone is agreeing right now, but I don't know if anyone else wants to say what it means to them.
I mean, I think it still baffles me that, as Lawrence said, we have to even say Black Lives Matter. You know, and it baffles me still that people think it's okay to go, but like there's no but there. Black Lives Matter does not then get followed by a but, because all we're saying is base level, our lives matter, just matter. Do you know what I mean? Like, how can anybody say, oh no, but it's not like that because all lives, all like, yeah, fine, but that's not the conversation we're having right now. It's not about all lives because all lives are in danger right now. Black lives are in danger right now. I think it's frustrating as well that we're still having this conversation 7 years after the hashtag even started. You know, people are real quick to forget that Black Lives Matter happened already 4 years ago with the marches, with everyone saying that they understood, with everyone saying that they were behind people. Sure, there were no black squares then, but the conversation started being had and nothing changed. And so now when people are like, oh, you know, why do you think there's a need to keep saying this? Because people aren't listening. And also, when Black Lives Matter is being saying predominantly by white people, then I'll feel slightly less mad about it, because this isn't a conversation that should just be by us. Do you know what I mean? And again, with this whole point of finding a black person to lead the way and start educating everybody about what's wrong, no, it cannot be down to us to keep having this conversation, because we didn't create this system and we are not benefiting from the system. And the people that we try to talk to about that will quite quickly go into a place of discomfort and or fear, and then the conversation is also ended. And I think again with this End SARS movement as well, I think that Black Lives Matter, but Black Lives Matter everywhere. You know, yes, this is what's happening in the UK. It is not good. You know, we can all agree on that, I hope. But also, people are dying from police brutality in Nigeria. You know, people are dying from police brutality everywhere. And if you care about Black lives, care about Black lives everywhere, because this is all still remnants of colonialism. It's still remnants of people being made to feel like they are commodities rather than those who should be able to live a full, fear-free life. And so that's what it is to me. And it's not something that is you read one article, you watch one documentary, and it's done. No, it's not done. It's not done.
Thank you. Mena.
I think obviously echo the comments Lawrence and Ngaio have already stated. I think these are I echo them. They're given standard. I think for me, in addition to those, I think from when I hear Black Lives Matter, it takes me back to when I first heard Black Lives Matter, and it takes me back to when I was a child. I was obsessed with the Black Panthers. I wanted to be born in the civil rights era in America because I wanted to be a Black Panther. That was like my childhood dream. Is obviously you wouldn't want to be born then, but that's what I thought I wanted because I could be part of something that was anti-racist. And I wanted to be born in South Africa during apartheid and be part of the student uprisings because I was really obsessed with that for a period of time when I was in my teens. So I wanted to be part of a movement. And all of those movements talk about sort of wider issues, so not just about anti-racism, but in terms of what does that actually mean. It means equality in terms of health, in terms of socioeconomic status, just in terms of feminism and so on, all of those things combined. So when Black Lives Matter, the most recent resurgence came around when the Patricia and is it Ann Colours, I think, or Can Colours, and the other women, the three women that started the Black Lives Matter movement, I forget their names now, but they came up and it was like, that's queer Black women that are leading this movement, dark-skinned, and it's encompassing all of these things, and it was queer affirming, and it was about sexism, and it's about everything that goes from within the Black community as well. And I think for me, it was affirming in that sense, because outside the Black community, and that's just a given, but it was about Black people from within also uniting. I think for me, it's about a recognition that, we also need to support each other. I think as a Black woman, it's about thinking about men being part of the movement, who's holding up Black women within the movement. I constantly am like, where are the men? Like, where are they? Because throughout my life experience, they were never present. It doesn't mean that they don't exist. It doesn't mean that they're not there, but they just weren't present in terms of that part of the movement. So that's what for me, it's more than that side of it. It's also how are we as a community supporting each other from within. And then, addition to echoing what Ngaio was saying, it's about sort of as a diaspora. My family are Nigerian. Me and my brother are the only ones of our hundreds of cousins that were born in the UK that live here. Everybody else still lives back in Nigeria. So how do we as the diaspora continue to be allies and support our cousins and our relatives and on the continent that have different experiences to us? So it's about the whole movement for me in terms of that's that statement.
Will.
Yeah, man. 100% in agreement with everything that's been shared as well. Black Lives Matter is a human issue, man. It's an issue about humanity. If I'm gonna be honest, it doesn't go any further than that for me. Like, it's firstly, like, it's annoying. It's annoying that like a humanities issue has to be called Black something. Like, ooh, that really gets on my nerves, man. Like, it really gets on my nerves. I was working on a project to do a series of like short audio dramas, and they are about Black masculinity and the myth thereof that it is like living in the West. And I'd come up with a whole series of names, but because it wasn't going to be marketable, I had to call it Black Boys Cry. I wasn't given an option. by this organization. Otherwise, it was giving them another reason to pull the project from distribution anyway. And I was like, it's such a shame. Like, masculinity in the Black community cannot be recognized as a standalone thing. Gender in the Black community cannot be recognized as a standalone thing. It has to be Black gender. It has to be Black boys or Black girls. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a bittersweet thing for a movement like the Black Lives Matter, because it has to do that and make sense. And then in doing it, it has to do that to position itself. But then in doing that and position itself, it misses the point. You know, people forget that it's a humanities movement. It's about you being brave enough to love yourself, every single part of yourself, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so you have enough left over to love someone else who walks a different walk of life. That's pretty much all it stands for. No, it's Black. So apparently, like, it can only exist in that space. It's unfortunate, but it's the world we live in. We need these really quick, digestible, like anagrams or phrases or terms for anything to be able to catch on and turn into something bigger in the future and to grow. And that's where we are now as a community, as a society. But the fact that these things are happening gives hope for the children. Effectively, you must be looking at us being like, oh, you're such clowns. But it's necessary for now, you know? Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
I'm going to ask a question which I hadn't planned to ask, and I think it's a question that I think it really sets a different perspective to this. I don't think a lot of people understand what it means when we say when we actually claim or feel that we are Black. So what does it mean to you? And I want this to be quite short. What does being Black mean to you, so that somebody else can actually understand what it is to you as an individual? Ngaio, I can see you're quite excited about that one.
I was like, what do you mean quite short? Sorry, quite short. All right. So the reason I was like, oof, is because that was a real sticking point for me for a very long time, and I really I was born in Harlesden, Northwest. Don't worry, we'll be quick. Don't worry, this is the quick fire context. So born in Harlesden, very multicultural. Then moved to Wales, very rural. 5 years old, only Black person in the town. And then moved to Bristol when I was 9, and again really multicultural, but by then I was not a good Black person. I didn't know any Black things, so I didn't, watch MTV Base. I just had none of the superficial culture, which I was then told is what made me Black. So, and I'd grown up in predominantly white areas, and I think what that did is it really made me question if I was allowed to talk about Black politics, or if I was even allowed to claim my Blackness. And I'd gone from proudly wearing, my little African dresses to the Welsh parties just to freak people out for bants, because I was that kind of kid, to coming to, the place where I thought I'd meet people like me and being completely unsure of myself. So it's actually been a really long journey, and I think I started to reclaim that part of me when I helped organize the Black Lives Matter March in 2015. And that was purely a case of just feeling like, wow, yeah, I've got my white privilege, yeah, I've got my belonging issues, I've got my identity crises, flicking out all over the shop, but I can do something. I'm good with words, I'm good with people, and actually I need to do something because I feel helpless. And then off the back of that, actually also helping to organize some events with Black Girl Convention with Mena, and I think as soon as I started to feel like I didn't have to apologize for my Blackness, it became so much easier to hold it and wear it and love it.
Awesome. Will, I see you nodding your head. I think I'll just come straight to you next.
What it means to be Black, I think Black is a myth, to be honest with you. Should we stop it there? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I feel like it's. Oh, I've lost people on my screen.
I can see you. Lawrence is back as well.
One was like, go home. Done. Looks over.
I feel like black is color. Black is it's spectrum. It's the whole thing. It's the community that can physically be born absolutely white as well as the darkest of dark. You know, black is everybody. It's people. Everyone is melanated to a percentage. Like everybody is melanated to a percentage. You know, that's if you look in a mirror and you don't see black, no matter who you are, you're lost. I think. But yeah, that's it. That's how I feel about it.
Mena, I'm gonna come to you on this one.
I knew you were going to come to me. I just feel like, as I'm thinking, like, what does that mean to me? And I think I feel like I've always been able to own it. I think because I was the only black girl in my school, I was the only black girl in my school. That was it. Like, it wasn't, so I'd always been black, but I also always knew that I was Nigerian, although British Nigerian, because, you know, British Nigerian. And so then, like, I think for me, it's just I don't really have an answer. It's just me. Like, it doesn't, as on one hand, it's a myth, you know, color is a social construct, or race is a social construct, so it is what it is. On the other hand, I guess it's everything that I'm about. It's everything that I do. It's kind of like, you know, it's holding myself. It's being proud. It's owning my shiz. It's you know, trying to lift and bring other people with me, especially women. It's community. You know what I mean? It's trend. It's like melanin popping. Do you know what I mean? It's it, if that makes sense. It's what everybody wants to be deep down inside, and because they're not, that's where the hate probably comes from. It's all of those things.
Lawrence, I'm kind of looking at you and I'm thinking, I'm not even sure, but I'll come to you on this one, Lawrence.
Well, we'll kind of hit it on the head straight away. For me, black is the great white lie, which we've held because it was given to us, because before that we were slaves. Before that we might have been a Negro or a nigger or a coon, and all of a sudden they gave us the identity black. I'll ask any child, if you tell a child he's a black man or black girl, ask him where black is. Watch how quick that journey ends. Okay, you're black. What country on the planet is called the black? Where's black? Where's your identity? Where do you go? And black isn't even a color. It's the absent of all. They gave us something that is absent of light to keep us in the dark. Will said it earlier. This is a human story. Humanity has been pitched against itself with a social construct of race, which is only 550 years old. Before that, pretty much so, the world traded very well equally with everybody on the planet. We're all born on one planet Earth. Humanity, we know, started on a landmass we now know as the continent of Africa that's split away. We know the story. We know that we all come from the same origin. Yeah, humanity over time has changed its appearance. We're all one. Will said. The only thing that it hasn't got melanin in it is albinoism. When a mutation into the human gene goes, and that's the only thing that takes melanin out. Everybody's melanated. Everybody. So what? And just know this: I was the blackest kid you've ever found. I was a half-breed when I was a kid. I had a choice of this when I was a little boy. I could be a half-breed or a half-caste or a bastard. They're the three choices my identity was given. So I took half-breed. I would never be a half-breed and I'll be a breed. Then later on, after Roots came out, I became black. And I'm telling you, I became black. Yeah. If certain people looked at me, I'm going to fight you just for looking at me. What are you looking at me for? Yeah, it went that far. And it made you completely, completely disengaged from so much of society that actually you should be part of. So straight away, it's separating and dividing us out. Black to me tells me everything I've lost.
Thank you, Lawrence. What I'm going to ask right now is actually, I think because we're having this conversation, we're in an educational space, and all of you have been involved in building education, I think about Black Girl Con, I think about Cargo, I think about the work Ngaio and what you will do. And I'm thinking somewhere along the line, universities do have a major role to play in actually dismantling this problem of institutional racism. What do you think universities should be thinking about doing, or schools? But I think universities, we can focus on universities at this time. I'll start with you, Mena.
Redesign. The short answer. I think that I mean, you know, I don't work in an institution, but I've attended plenty. I went to Southampton, Bath, and Bristol, and I only finished one of them fully, for various reasons. And I feel like the experience I had, yeah, it you know, it was traumatic in some parts. I can remember being at UE Bristol and studying film over at Barrow Ashton back in the early noughties, and complaining to the lecturer because this is just as the internet was kind of new. There were no books that had Black people in them. There were no film. I was doing a film degree. There wasn't a single film in the whole of the university archive that we were using that were made by Black directors or had Black people in them. And I think in the 3 years of the course, we got shown one short film by a Black female director. So for me, you know, coming to UE 20 years later, delivering on equity and hearing the similar stories from the students, not to the degree, because obviously we have the internet now, but hearing the same experiences and nothing having changed, I think that there clearly needs to be a redesign. That redesign needs to come from the top, from the bottom, from the left, from the right. It needs to be, you know, the whole education system from primary school right through to university has got issues anyway. So by the time they get to university, the damage is already done, if that makes sense. So you'd have to start from, you know, 4 or 5 and work your way through. But you know, the standard things, obviously representation in terms of academia, in terms of lecturers, professors, whatever, take out the elitism, what I mean, change the schedule, change the way of learning, recognize different styles and approaches. You know, all of those things are kind of standard. But in short, for me, it would be a redesign, redistribute the wealth. You know, I don't know why universities need to make a profit. Universities in Bristol own a lot. You know, give those buildings back over. I'll take one.
I'll come to you, Will, on the same question.
I think I don't land too far away from what Mena said about a redesign, to be honest with you. I think if we're going to look at equity, if we're going to look at agency, things that I kind of like group together and belonging, then some large risks have to be taken, and you actually have to like put it all into faith. You know, we all believe in stuff, we all believe in things. The strength of our belief in those things depend on how many times we see that thing reflected back at us. Money, for example, is pretty much the leader of the new world. It's the new faith, because if you was to take it away, which is what COVID almost presented us, when the economy actually grinds to a halt, what could happen, what's possible? You see what I'm saying? Everyone's talking about different normals, whatever that means. I think 2020 has presented an opportunity to really lean into what happens if we take something and we really shake it up. Where do the pieces land? And then what's possible for us? What can we recognize? What can we build around that? There's the idea of a university is a scary one, because it suggests that there is one way. It's education done in one way. Like, life is duplicitous, do you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to think of multiversities. You have to recognize that a house built in Knoll isn't going to be built the same way as a house built in Tema in Ghana. See what I'm saying? It doesn't make a house in Tema any less of a house than the house in Knoll. You get what I'm saying? So I think like if I was to start, if you was to give me one big move to make, yeah, it'd be term times in boards and leadership positions. You got 3-5 years max. You need to be looking for the person. Your job is to look for the person to fill that space once you leave, and collectively we have to be making sure that those people that are coming through of enough different experiences to ensure that we're getting a more wider perspective on what education can be moving forward. But yeah, I mean, I'm just a guy in this room right now.
Lawrence, I'll come to you quickly on that.
I think we're seeing what the universities, what should they do? What's the question? What's the question again, Emmanuel?
So what would you advise, what do you think universities should do to dismantle this problem we've just described?
Well, they're built from, aren't they? The whole thing holds, like, literally they got to dismantle everything that they believe in, because everything they've been educated has been on a half-truth. So if you just look, I'd expect, if you went through the whole curriculum of studies at university, I believe that whole parts that are being done by people who are of non-Eurocentric opinions are actually removed. So I think with the universities, we got to try to make them engage. But at the same time, I don't really know why we keep being so reliant on the same places that serve us so little. And where's the, I think I've seen Mena put something on about there's a free black units virtual. Maybe go and have a look at that. And maybe look at other resources. We should be building our own resources, I think. With the reason with some of this, why I'm just like, that's why we created Cargo Classroom. Take it out of their hands. I don't do what you're doing for a minute. We're going to build resources and build knowledge bases there that people can go somewhere else other than trying to break through to try to find something that might be hidden in the back of a corner of a room. Create something where this information, those knowledge bases are at the forefront, not at the back, not in the black section in the library behind the woodwork kit. Yeah. Go into the library, and the library is African excellence from the beginning. Yeah, and people of that in the beginning. So some of it's a bit like that. Yeah, we've made like that in partnership, but really, you do what you're doing, and we're going to show you that we can do better. So that's kind of my thing. I can't. It's a bit with some of these institutions. Yeah, I've got to try and break this institution. You know, this has been going on for decades and decades and decades and decades. Nothing has ever changed. We have a few flashpoints. Yeah, 2007, abolition of slavery, bicentennial. Black Lives Matter, 2015. Black Lives Matter, Colston smashing on his face in the town centre, 2020. 1997, there's something else to do with slavery. Yeah, Bristol did this. Nothing is happening, and when the university will come address this right now. If the universities really want to make a change, put some 10-year contracts out for the people in the city that we know have been trying to create change and put a different space into. There's loads of them, and there's a 10-year contract that could employ everybody that's been involved in this. Yeah, because that's how many people you need doing this. You need about 100 stories written a year. You need so much just to try to put some balance back into such a biased narrative. There's not enough work for everybody in Bristol if everybody was trying to put this correct. There's not enough for all of us to do in our lifetimes to try to put some balance back into this. So the universities, they've got to put their money where their mouth is. Stop cutting in to the black community in Bristol. Do a project for a year or a moment, tick it on your books, put it on your Insta, your Facebook, and your social medias, 4 nice pictures. We satisfied our need this year. Yeah, but what I want to know, in all this money that all of them have spent in the city over the last 2 decades, where's the product at the end besides a report? We see it, meetings, talks, this, we're going to address this, we get that, they get everybody in, everybody coming, we sit around, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I've been invited to loads, all of us have probably been invited to loads of decades. You come, yeah, we're going to address this, you do it, they do whatever they're doing, they tick off their box and say, we're addressing this issue. Yeah, that satisfies whatever's working for them. But then there's never any product to move it forward. And the next year or the next year, it'll be another little grouping of people who'll be excited and everybody else believing they can create change. They suck them in, take you through the same thing. Come along. And here we are, Bristol. Remember, this is Bristol 2020. And yeah, the universities now want $1.5 million to change the names of their halls. They got $1.5 million to change the names of their halls because the whole world's looking at the university because a statue fell on its face. But they could find $1.5 million like that today to make themselves look better. Wouldn't it be nice if they found $1.5 million to invest in the communities to improve the lives and opportunities and achievements in those communities? But to change the name of the buildings, 1.5 million is fine just like that, to appease their outward face. So a lot of it still for me is it's for us to make it better.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Ngaio, I don't know if you have anything to add to this as well.
I don't either. I feel like everyone said what needs to be said. I guess I kind of echo everyone in that. I think university is too late sometimes as well. I think the education system. I think as soon as we stop introducing Black history with slavery and actually have some Black joy from early, so that actually we see how much Black culture has contributed to the current world that we live in, and we're not just brought to it in a state of victimhood and sadness and terror, would be great. And also, real talk, I didn't go to university because I was just like, what is university going to teach me? Why am I going to go and put myself in a traumatizing situation with people who have probably, I'm the first Black person they would have ever seen, and do that for 3 years and drink myself through it? You know what I mean? Like, the rates of depression in universities are huge. And
Yeah, to interrupt now, that is literally the reason why I left Southampton, was that whole, I've never met a Black person before and you're just like normal people. It was literally one of the first comments I had in my first week. It was like going from Bristol to a smaller town, but sorry, I had to just get in there, but carry on.
This is it. No, but also that's everyone's story. Do you know what I mean? And I had a couple of moments where I was like, oh, maybe I'd enjoy university. And I went to a couple of my friends' freshers' nights. I was like, no, absolutely not, because you have to live this. I get to come and have a few of your cheap shots and then see the ridiculous conversations you have to live with, not even just be out with, live in a room with. Like, no, it's not for me. And I've spoken to so many people who have gone to universities in Bristol and just been like, it's just exhausting, and so for me, I'm like, university wasn't going to teach me anything. University wasn't going to make me any happier. University was definitely going to give me a liver problem, and some very questionable coping mechanisms, which is what I think I see a lot of. And so yeah, and same with what was Lawrence was saying. I just thought, no, I want to go and find my own resources. I've learned more in the first 15 pages of Black and British. I learned more about British society than I did in my whole time at school. And it's because it's being written from a different perspective, and it's taking us all the way back to provide some actual historical context about where we are now and why. So yeah, I mean, similarly, I helped set up Beyond the Hashtag, which is a website. It's got a whole resources section, and that has got a section for kids. It's got a section for parents to teach their kids, because it's not a case of the universities need to start doing something now, because like Lawrence says, they're not doing nothing. They're not going to do anything. It's a system that is working for what it needs to do, to churn out people, to get them into lots of debt, to get them onto a road of work that is quickly diminishing. And I just don't think it's really something that's been there with our community in mind, of how that they can build and thrive after they leave.
Because of time, because we need to get people to the Q&A, so I'm going to ask 2 questions in one. And these are 2 sort of unrelated questions, but I'm going to try and figure out how to bring those 2 questions in for you guys to finish this section, and then we can get to Q&A. So what's the one thing that gives you hope for a better Bristol in the future? And the second part is, what has the world missed, waiting for the issues of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Black Lives Matter to see how good you guys are?
Repeat the second part of the question. I didn't
The second
understand.
question is, what exactly is the world missing, or has the world missed, just waiting this entire time to see the quality that you guys have? Sorry, I know it's
I'm going to tackle the first bit of the question, which is, I think what gives me hope are these faces that I see in front of me right now. Because actually, what has happened over the past 5 years, even sort of the past 5 years, is so many people just going, no, we're not waiting. we're not waiting for others. And people have been doing work in the community for such a long time, but I feel like this, and maybe it's just because I'm coming into this stuff, you know, in the last few years, I don't know. I feel like there is such a sense of empowerment, and also just not apologizing. You know, I think the lack of apology makes me really hopeful, because no one's going, hi, we'll do this and let's do it really nicely. Everyone's like, no, this needs to happen. It needs to happen now. So sit down and let's get on with work. And if you're not going to get on the train, move, because the train's coming regardless. And I like that. I'm like, we're not, you know, it's not about not being collaborative or anything. It's just about saying enough is enough. And we're not going to, all these people who say that they are behind the conversation, they want to see change, like Colston statue is a really good example of it. People petitioned for a long time to get that down the correct way. There were board meetings, there was presentations at council, there was discussions. All of the right modes of doing that were followed. Nothing changed. So what happened is people had to take that on for themselves, and that has been a huge spark. And I think, you know, despite whatever people might say about, you know, just destroying public property, it had to get done. It had to get done. Spark had to happen. You know what I mean? And sometimes you just got to get really raggo with it. And it makes me so proud to see that. I think that the hope is that the spark has happened, and it was one that was not just ignited by the Black community. I think now it's also about seeing and appreciating and supporting all the people who are working to try and continue that work after the spark has died down.
Thank you. Will, I'll come to you.
I think yes. Similarly, for that first question, what gives me hope is youth, like kids, pretty much children having things at their disposal to be able to make up their own minds to an extent. I know there's elements of it that are unsafe, but you can learn a lot from children. So for them to be seeing this, the kids to be able to walk around and know that there's a Mena Fombo, there's a Ngaio, there's a Lawrence, there's a Will, there's an Emmanuel. Do you know what I'm saying? There's like, the list is actually it's really, really like nourishing right now, knowing people doing what they can in all of their different spaces. Like, I'm sat here, I know that one of my friends who works in STEM, like, is now trying to work in the creative industry and getting engineering companies to collaborate with creative companies to work on diversity. I mean, come on, that kind of stuff is nice, so that youngers can look up and see that that's happening. Those two things combined are what gives me hope. What's the world missed? The world's missed out on the patience, man, for waiting for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Like, you can only do so much, yeah. If my dad always used to say to me, like, if you're doing something and someone says stop, stop. And I was like, what kind of wisdom is that, bruv? Like, that's common sense, yeah? Do you know what I'm saying? But this whole situation this year has been proof of the fact that actually, no, that isn't afforded to everyone. You know, be it out of complacency, comfort, whatever you want to call it, that's not afforded to everyone. So the world has lost out on a collective society's patience now. People are seeing that those like systems are fallible. Critical mass is now increasing to recognize that there is something gravely, gravely wrong. That human life and expression in its entirety is being commodified. And there are people like this on the screen actually saying, no, here's life. Like, this is what life can feel like. So yeah, I think that's what they missed, and subsequently that's what gives me hope as well.
Thank you. And Lawrence?
Hope, I like following Will. It's the Will which makes you feel happy, right? And he always puts it across well. He's clear and he's right. For me, at this moment in time, hope comes from, I know quite a few people that are actually independently doing what they're doing around the city and in different places. And it's actually putting us together. So I'm having joy at the moment. I don't really like working with people. I've got trust issues. But I've learned that you can only do so much on your own. And in collaboration, my God, it's incredible what can be achieved. So I'm having joy this year. putting different people together that can all get it done. With no permission or you don't have to ask nobody nothing. We're just doing what we're doing, right? Connecting with young people as well, and then also connecting across into the construction industry. I got friends that do that run property companies. Young Anton Brand, who's just launched his independent academy. We've got people who are going to help support Anton, get his workers into some of the people I know who are millionaire property developers. By the way, all of African descent, yeah, all in the city. Yeah, independent, we do independent production. That's what we've done this year. I'm excited because I know that the change is right now. We're living in a change that some of us might not quite expect and realize it's actually happening. The veil slipped. The veil of something being slipped. We can move. People shouldn't feel afraid now to talk. What a lot of people I know for a fact were afraid to speak for years. A lot of people are told, don't work with Lawrence, who he's trouble. My work's not changed. What I say hasn't changed, but all of a sudden it's become okay to talk like me. That's all that's changed. So stand up, people, speak out. You are all stronger with more power than you could ever imagine, and collectively, and this is humanity across the board, yeah, we can make a change like that. We just got to believe. So that's what my hope is. That's my clap, sorry. That's my hope. And what have they missed out? What the world's missed out by Bristol being able to contain a lot of the voices that are in Bristol. That's the thing for Bristol. It's like this. Don't just talk to Bristol, because Bristol can mute. You must make your voice leave this city, and you'll be amazed how many people you will have who will be your allies. And that's what they've missed. There's so much talent in this city. There's so much talent in this city, but the city's very well at controlling its narrative. And until the statue fell, yeah, it was winning. The statue fell. The whole world's still looking here. Over 3 billion African people know where Bristol is now. Just know they didn't have a clue, most of them, where their ancestors went, what routes they went through. They know that this is the city that started it. Check the records. We were the first one to be sanctioned. We got the Royal Charter, yeah, in what, 1555, about then, to make it legal for the Bristol merchants to own enslaved Africans as cargo. If we started this, I'm not going to say it, yeah, then it has to be the place that starts the change. I believe 2020 was the beginning of the change. Let's take our knee off the neck of racism. Yeah, let's bring humanity back together. Let's stop black and white being devices. We're a human family. Let's collectively work together and make a better world. So I'm more hopeful than I've ever been. To be honest, I've never really ever had hope.
Thank you, Lawrence. Mena?
Woo! Lot to follow.
Sure. Of course.
I'm going to go with the first part of the question in terms of what am I hopeful for. And I think I was talking recently on another sort of panel, and one of the members, Black Girl Convention, she used the analogy of for so long, the elephant is trained to believe that the stick is mightier than the elephant. The small stick is stronger, and that's why it does what it's been broken. Literally, you break an elephant's back, break it to nothing, and then it learns a stick is mightier than it, and then it kind of, does what the stick says. And I feel like I'm hopeful for the fact that that has happened to us, and for lots of Black people are still thinking like that. But I'm hopeful that there's so many generations now coming through that don't think like that. And as Lawrence, you mentioned, people were told not to work with you. Do you know what I mean? You're the elephant that was like, nah, man, that stick, I can trample on that stick. And so I feel like I'm hopeful for that mindset to be coming through, and people not being afraid and having other people to stand by and kind of back that up and have each other's back and support. I think I'm hopeful for just the old guard who have been amazing with their activism and with their resistance and with their campaigning and fighting. But at the same time, things change, and I think I'm hopeful that the old guard can just rest. They can sit back in the nicest way possible and look at what they've done and take time and let the next generation start to come through. Because I feel like sometimes the old guard can be equally the problem, because they still think like the elephant that is obeying the stick. I'm hopeful for all the alternatives that are coming through. So again, projects like Cargo, Booty Base, the stuff that Will's involved in is sort of exploring masculinity and research and obviously from my side, Black Girl Convention, like I'm hopeful for more women, Black women, us being seen, finally getting a piece of our pie, because, we're always the ones underneath at the back, holding stuff together, but actually getting our day. And to just the connections that have come through Black Girl Convention has been amazing. And so I'm hopeful for those movements to continue. I guess I'm hopeful for not to kind of, we've dissected what the Black Lives Matter means and what being Black means, but recognizing we understand those terms. I'm hopeful for, again, women, queer people, trans people to be included in those movements and acknowledged and recognized and supported within both within the Black community, but also wider.
Thank you so much. We can go on all night just having these conversations. Unfortunately, we can't, and I think there are many people who have questions that they might want to ask. So I'd like to thank you guys for giving your time this evening to be here. I'd like to thank you guys for actually sharing your thoughts and your experiences with us. And I will hand over to the moderators to actually pull out some of those questions for you as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, again. Hi, everyone. I'm Louise, and we are moving now to the questions. We are using a platform called menti.com. You can access this on your phones, tablets, or computers. The link has been posted on the in the chat. I am now going to bear with a second. I'm now going to screen share so you can see it, and then we're going to try and do this smart technological thing where we can all see the questions as we're talking. But bear with, this is the classic of everything being so digital these days. Bear with a second. Suddenly. Oh, sorry, suddenly my brain. Okay, so actually, let's do a plan B because my plan A isn't working. So we are going to, if you go on menti.com and submit your questions, I will be able to see your questions and I will put them in the chat for the moderators panel who'll be able to answer them. Apologies that technology is a challenging one every single time. So if you go on menti.com, submit your questions, and then I'll be able to sift them through and share them with the panel. So we'll give people like
technology working in the future.
Yeah, we'll give people a few minutes, but do start getting them flowing in.
Whilst we're waiting for the questions to come through, feel free to go to blackgirlconvention.com. Our conference is on the 2nd of November, the 8th of November. We've gone virtual. We've got an amazing lineup, and we're recruiting 2 emerging hosts plus interviewers, a $16.75. We get paid $2.75 to host one of our 2 amazing panels. They need to be from the Southwest, the Midlands, or Wales. But check out blackgirlconvention.com. All the details are there.
Okay, I think I've nailed it. This every time it gets a bit of a... Okay, so bear with a second, and so let me know whether that has worked, because one. If you could see that.
Yeah.
For the first question. And Emmanuel, you can decide how the panel answers the questions.
The first question is, I've started a project around equality and inclusivity, and because I don't see any change, I feel demotivated. What can I do to keep going? I will start with you, Mena, because I can see you right on my screen right now.
I would say, depending on what you're doing and the detail and the change that you're trying to achieve, I would say sometimes that this work, we know it's been going on for forever, and it's not even a marathon. It's like a multi-marathon repeated year on year. And so I would say maybe set yourself some smaller goals that or milestones that are on the way to the bigger goal. So it may not feel like you're not seeing any change, but it may be that you are doing all the right things. It just will take longer than you envisioned it to take, depending on the project. So that might be one thing. Sometimes the other thing is just to stop doing it and just walk away from it. Because if you're not motivated, actually, go do something else that you are motivated to do. And you might come and pick the project up. And I'll just land that by saying, when I launched Black Girl Convention, I started in 2016. It took a year before I ran the first one in 2017. And it's only now in 2020 in a place that I thought it would be in 2016. And so sometimes these things just take longer.
Thank you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually give a question to each of the panelists, because I think so I would just be able to move the questions forward. Can we go to the next question, please, Louise? I can see it on my screen, so I can ask the question anyway. So the second question I can see, Lawrence, I'm going to pose this to you. It is hard to pick yourself up when you are in an oppressive institution. What advice can you give the person who's asking that question? Lawrence, can you hear me?
Right, I can hear you. Could you just say that question quickly again, Emmanuel?
Yeah, someone said it is hard to pick yourself up when you are in an oppressive institution. Any advice for that person?
If I couldn't believe I could enact any change within that institution, I'd leave. I don't know if that's the right advice for them, but that's what I would do, because whatever I'm working or where I'm thinking, it needs to be more fulfilling. And I don't know if they have the ability or the opportunity that they could actually find a way to do that work themselves independently about being there. But no, that's why I could never work within any of these institutions, because I couldn't tolerate that type of behaviour. So I don't know, maybe someone else that could. I just tell you to leave.
I think Mina's also put something in the chat. So decide how important being in that institution is for you, and then if it is not that important for you, then it might be worth you maybe taking a step away from the space. So I think that's also supporting what you just said. Thank you, thank you, Lawrence. Yeah. So the third question I can see on my screen is: can the panel address how you feel about Black Lives Matter in the US and in other countries, and how does it differ from the UK? And I will come to you, Ngaio.
I think every space has had to decide on what Black Lives Matter means for them in their cultural context. You know, I think Black politics are different in every single space. The US is obviously been given a lot more light, probably because of the videos that get sent around and because of having guns and all that kind of stuff. So I think it really depends on where it is. You know, the Black Lives Matter movement is in Nigeria is completely different to the US. It's completely different to France, which are quite behind on the Black Lives Matter conversation and in terms of racial discussion, full stop. And in the UK, you know, I think what has been very interesting to me is how little I knew about the history of police brutality against Black people in the UK until I started looking into it. Because again, we were just being fed the rhetoric of the US in a way that meant that the UK could go, oh no, but we're not that bad because we're not, you know, killing people in the street. So I think actually digging into where Black Lives Matter came from in the UK and all the police brutality and all the people who have died here, and looking at the more nuanced parts of the conversation around, you know, institutional racism, around opportunity, around mental health, around all these types of things, I think it differs completely because everywhere is different. So the conversation is completely different, but it's really important to understand the context of it, each place that it's in.
Thank you, Ngaio. I've got a question here. How do you approach people who love and embrace the Black culture with everything in it, but not the Black people? Well, I'll come to you on that.
Oh Lord. How? Sorry, could you repeat that?
How do you approach people or engage with people who love and embrace Black culture and everything in it, but not Black people?
Man, that's so contextual. I mean, like for me personally, oh man, I have to remember where I am. I can't say that. Yeah, leave them. Like, uh, they're actually like on their own journey. I've had to like this year. I've had to really respect and accept. A lot of this is about acceptance as well. Like what can be done. Like I was saying at the very beginning, like what is in and what is without, like what is outside of my control. And some people are actually past it. Their truth, their context, and their experience won't allow them to see the pain that they're causing. Some things need time. One of my best friends was just like this year. He was just like, "Thank you for not actually making me feel like absolute crap. The number of times I've let you down." And he actually burst into tears, crying, and just recounted all of these moments that he remembered me like stating racism and then him just playing it off. And he's gotten there in the end. And he's still on his journey. But yeah, for them kind of cats are just out there doing stuff all willy-nilly, man. On them firstly, and the moment they get in your way, the moment they oppress your life like directly, is when a swift word, a swift word about history, a swift word about culture. If these people we're talking about are white as well, I think a really important question is to ask them what whiteness means to them. That might start a conversation that could give them an opportunity to explore what they're actually doing.
Thank you. Because of time, I can't go through, we've got quite a number of questions here, but I think I'll just pick two more questions. And I think one of them is an interesting, challenging question. Someone asked the question, can a Black person or Bane person be racist? And this is not to challenge anybody, but a question because it's repeatedly heard from a Black activist that only white people can be racist. And I think I'll throw that to you, Lawrence, just a very quick response, if possible, on this one. Lawrence, can you hear me?
This comes right from, I've heard this, and it's about the power of controlling social and economic advancement, I believe, and that's why they say that the people that hold those strings and have that power are the ones that can be deemed as racist. If you don't have that power, then your behaviour is more of a prejudice. But I think this question in itself is a distraction. The question is not about whether this isn't the question. The question is that racism is here and people of African descent are still suffering from it. And this question itself is a distraction. This isn't the question. The question is white racism is real. The consequences of it we're experiencing to this day, and they're absolutely detrimental. So really, this question, I'm not even interested in the question.
Right. So what I'm just going to do is, I think there are a few other questions, but the last thing I'm going to raise is a question which was asked by someone. The scene that the event was put together by the university, if you don't mind, what is the university doing to support its Nigerian students during the very difficult time with the NSARS movement? I don't think I'll be throwing that question at anyone here because obviously that's thrown towards the university, but I think it's worth everyone who is part of this conversation, who works at the university, and this is a bit of advice I would also give, check on your students, think about your systems, think about the spaces, check on your students who are here who might actually need your support right now because people are going through quite a lot of difficulty. And I think that's where I'll leave that. And I know there are many more questions, but I think because of time, I think we're just 1 minute away from 7. I will hand over to Louise to sort of close the event. But I want to thank everyone for being here and actually listening and engaging with the questions, asking very tough and very difficult questions, and also the panelists for being very honest, very challenging, very dynamic, very unique, and all the things that you guys are, because I think more people need to know about what you guys do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank you so much, everyone, for just an incredible conversation. It's been lovely to see all the engagement in the chat panel. It's been an absolute pleasure to be able to hear everyone's conversations and engagements, and we really hope that this is kind of the spark of the start continuation of conversations on race and equity. I want to replug all the events that are happening here at the university, organised within our equity team, within our faculties, that you can find them all on our university website. I would really, we'll be posting in the chat the link for the, let me bear with a second, the link for the survey in terms of your feedback for today, which is something that we would really appreciate for you to take a few moments to fill out, just because it's important for us to kind of get some feedback and for us to make sure that we're doing the right thing, basically. I just wanted to say a special thank you to some of the members of the Equality, Diversity and Inclusivity team who have been working behind the scenes in the operational thing of these events. I think there's the beauty and challenge of telling all these events digital. It sometimes does take a bit of a teamwork to make everything flow smoothly. So a special thank you to Lizzie, to Valerie, to Vicky, for all kind of stepping in to kind of support the running of this event. And of course, thank you to our incredible panel, to Emmanuel for chairing. Please stay engaged, involved with us. You can follow us on Instagram. We don't have Instagram. I'm trying to make us more edgy than we are. We definitely don't have Instagram. On Twitter, at UE Equality. And if you do have any direct questions that you would like to ask us, then you can email us at edi@ue.ac.uk. But from us, I don't know if any of the panelists wanted to have a final words in terms of plugging the work that they do. I know you've all kind of done it in some ways, but this is a great opportunity for you all to really for make sure everyone remembers your names and remembers just the amount of incredible work you do. So if there's any kind of last minute plugs that any of you would want to do, and then we will close the evening.
Give a quick cheap plug then. Laura2.com, go there. There's freehold poetry collections there that you could, well, there's 2 you can hear. Also go to cargomovement.org, see what Cargo's doing. Yeah, that's the 2 main. Go and check it on there. You might find something interesting. And thank you, everybody.
Anybody else?
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
I put in the little box. Yeah, I've actually in the past couple of days interviewed someone who has been volunteering on the front lines at Lagos, in Lagos, Nigeria, on the Lekki Bridge. So I'm going to be posting that podcast up in the next days to kind of look at the context of what is going on with SARS. And also I've got a music video coming out on the 1st of November, which is for Blackbird, which is my song all about, you know this, Will, all about Black women and the need for our voices to be seen and heard and lifted. And it was filmed in Bristol, and it's really beautiful. So, and also I've got a radio show starting on next Thursday, which is going to be Drive Time. So if anyone's musicians or artists out there and they want to send me some stuff, there's going to be a on my website, and I put all that stuff in the chat box. And thank you for having me. It's been a really good conversation, really nice end to the evening.
Thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Does anybody have any last things before I close?
Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously I've said it a lot already, but Black Girl Convention, 2nd to 8th of November. The event is for women and girls of African Caribbean heritage. There's one event that is for people of any background, which is Instagram Live on Sunday, the 8th of November, 6 till 7:30. We're speaking to an amazing artist, storyteller, Amara the Lesbian, and she has been campaigning for the lives and rights of queer people during the End SARS movement as well. And so she's going to be giving her perspective on obviously being on the front line, but also campaigning for the lives of queer people within Nigeria at that time.
Thank you.
Because I might just plug up a little quickly as well. Firstly, big love. It's so good to see all of these panelist faces. Just so much love in this room for you guys at the moment and always. And thank you, Emmanuel, as well, man. Man was so smooth. I picked up a lot of tips from you, bro. In terms of what I'm up to, check out Rising Arts Agency. I'm working with Rosanna Diaz on co-leading their Transforming Leadership program called Be It, which has been incredible. What a journey it's been this year. And in terms of my audio work, The Residents, a podcast being made with the PM Studio, which is looking at marginalized communities and how they work in the creative sector. And Black Boys Cry. Ironically, it's Black Boys Cry on the BBC. So check it out on there. And that's the beginning of a series of stories around Black masculinity, and there'll be more stuff coming out around that too. But yeah, thank you guys for your time.
I want to talk to you about that Black Boys Cry. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. And just to say again, this talk has been recorded and it will be available to the public. Give me a week or so, but it will be available to the public, and all the events that have been hosted through the Equality, Diversity, Inclusivity team will be publicised through. So check out most likely through the through UWE Bristol, and we'll find a way to get it to have some dedicated space to get it publicized on our website as well. So you will be able to rewatch this and engage and share with your friends and networks so they can be educated and kind of engage in this conversation as well. With that, it is my pleasure to close this event, and again to say thank you to the panel, to Emmanuel, to everyone who's attended, and do continue on this conversation. And if there's anything that you would like to see happen more of within the university, by the university, that's quite broad. So either you can come to us and we can try and help you steer you in the right place, or we can try and see what we can do collaboratively. But please do come and voice your thoughts and ways that you'd like to see kind of a better kind of community here. But thank you, everyone. Have an absolutely lovely evening. Enjoy your dinners, hopefully, because this is very much dinner time after this. And I will be in touch and connected with you very soon. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right.